In a few hours from now, the opening ceremony starts, and to talk about India's prospects, we are now joined by Shiva Keshavan, who's joining us live from Italy. Shiva, thanks very much for joining us on this show. You know, every time ahead of the Olympics, we talk a lot about how India's medals per capita is among the lowest in the world. But when we look at your story, we actually get an understanding of why that may be the case. For the past many months, we understand you've been trying to crowdfund your own participation representing India in the next Winter Olympics in 2018. How tough has it been for you, man?
Well, there are a lot of challenges, of course. I mean, we're growing as a as a country in world sport, and every time we are participating in the Olympics, we are setting new records, showing that we're on the right track. So all we can do as athletes is do the best with what we have, be positive, and ultimately it's all going to boil down to how it goes that day. So we have to hope for the best. A little bit of luck is needed, and we all have to get behind our athletes and try to push them as hard as we can.
But how's the crowdfunding thing going along? Are you getting support on the internet, for instance? How has it been going, and are you still confident? We're keeping our fingers crossed that you're able to represent India in 2018.
Well, yes, there's always been a lot of support from people. I've done crowdfunding a couple of times before. It's helped me. The government is also getting more and more proactive to support athletes, so that's also a positive sign. At the corporate sector as well, there's more and more sponsorships coming up. So I think we're heading into a good phase. So I'm optimistic. Obviously, it's always tough, but that's what the game is all about.
In many of your past interviews, you've said that how there's been lack of support from the government. I mean, I'm curious to know, when you go and you speak with government officials, what seems to be the general response? Is it lack of awareness about a sport like luge, or do they sort of see a game like luge as a very elitist sport where they do not need to intervene and actively support and help?
Well, it's a big discussion can be held on this. But I think the bottom line is, since there are no sports professionals actually administering sports, it's much more difficult to communicate even the most basic necessities. So we need more athletes to take up roles in administration, so that these problems can be communicated, and that's the way we'll be able to get a move on.
In fact, you can't see a screenshot right now, but we are seeing these really cool videos that that you put up on YouTube and we kind of now know how good you really are. But tell us, in such an environment, what are the chances of Indian athletes? How many medals do you think this time round, realistically speaking, that India has the potential of winning this time round?
It would be good to see best performance ever by us, because we've had the biggest contingent going. So it would be good to see a new first. I don't want to say 6, 10, 12 medals, but I think as an athlete, I think the most important thing is when you play, you give in your best and you do it with honor. You don't cheat, and you bring honor to your country, and that's what everybody, all our countrymen, should understand, that anyway all the athletes are giving their best, and then medals, it will come.
Right. You're in Italy right now, Shiva, and I think it's also a reason why you need to go out of this country, because there are no luge tracks, I think, in India. So how do you practice, and how financially viable is it for athletes like you to keep constantly going overseas to practice?
Well, you see, the thing with international sport is that you constantly have competitions and international training weeks abroad, which you have to travel to. I mean, this is regardless whether you have the infrastructure in your country or not, you have to travel to these races. So the expenses do pile up. So, and especially if you add the equipment component, if you add the foreign coaches component, expenses do pile up for these sports, which is why we need, a funding program from the government, etc. But in our case, of course, we also lack a lot of infrastructure within India. In winter sports, for example, we have the mightiest mountains of the world, the Himalayas, but we don't have the world-class facilities to host races on. So, India is a developing country. We all hope that, soon the development will come in sports as well. So till then, we're waiting.
Right. All right, keeping our fingers crossed then, Shiva. But thank you so very much for taking time out and joining us here on India Business Hour. Plus, wish you all the luck for your future endeavors.